Hello, Josh. You are up next.
Hey, how's it going, Bart?
How's it going, Josh? Where are you playing out of?
I am in Blackhawk, Colorado
Oh,
at the
wow.
Monarch.
Another Blackhawk call. Well, we had the Blackhawk call at the beginning of this live stream here, too. So, Blackhawk, Colorado, and we heard from that guy that the 2-5 game is a $2,500 buy-in cap, which is the largest 2-5 I've actually ever heard of. What game are you playing?
I'm just 1-3.
So, this is 500 cap? Is that right?
Yes, a 500 cap, but I've earned enough to be 700 effective for this hand.
So, it's a 500 cap. You're 700 effective. I want to ask you, because of that other caller. So I just found it kind of interesting. So at Blackhawk, it goes 1-3 500 max buy-in, and then it jumps to 2-5 2,500. Is that right?
Quite a jump, yes.
And has anybody ever called to like either raise the cap at the 1-3 or introduce something that's kind of in the middle?
I've never made that call, but I'm sure somebody has.
Right. No, it's just that's a very, very big jump. It's definitely a big jump to have that kind of structure. Usually there would be something in the middle in between there, but I mean, it's not quite like the jump in commerce 20 years ago when it was 200 max up to 1020 uncapped, or 510 400 cap up to 1020 uncapped. So 1-3 500 cap, you're 700 effective. Okay.
We are 9-handed. It was a pretty passive game. Nothing really was going on. I was trying to create an image by showing down on my bluffs, by talking a lot, acting more drunk than I was. So in this one, the under the gun limps. The middle position raises it up to 15. Folds to me in the cutoff, where I wake up with Jack of Hearts, Jack of Diamonds.
Jack of Hearts, Jack of Diamonds. Okay.
And I make it 60.
Okay, so here are 3 bets to 60, 4x. One limp, MP to 15. Hero 3 bets, jacks to 60. Is that about the usually the open sizes to 15 in this game?
I would say 12, 10 to 15, yeah.
Okay, sounds good to me so far. So you go to 60, yep.
Then it folds around back to the middle position, and he calls.
All right, so MP calls, and your head's up. So it's probably like 125, something like that in the pot.
Minus
Okay.
whatever rate they're doing that day.
Okay.
Flop is Jack of Clubs, 7 of Diamonds, 2 of Hearts.
Jack of Clubs, 7 of Diamonds, 2 of Hearts. So you flop top set on a very sort of dry board. I mean, there's a couple of gut shots in there. Jack of Clubs, 7 of Diamonds, Deuce of Hearts, Hero with Jack of Hearts, Jack of Diamonds. Okay.
I figured I had this board pretty covered. There wasn't much he could have. He checks, and then I check as well.
So MP checks, and Hero checks behind. All right, so just a couple of things here. I don't think that there's much wrong with sometimes taking the absolute strongest hands as a balance and checking some of the time as a slow play. Now, a couple caveats to that. It's 1-3, and it's a 3-bet pot. So whenever I feel like I want to slow play in some of these small stakes sort of live games, I just take a step back and I'm like, what are you doing? You're going to check here. And I just bet small. Like I might bet like 30 or something like that. It's not like, because checking, I feel like if you bet small enough, you're still going to get peeled by a lot of the ace high holdings now. Like it's funny, you might get the widest calling range now on the flop that's not strong, as opposed to like waiting to the turn. Unless you are up against some sort of maniac, which is not as common as people think, that will just start mindlessly bluffing on future streets. Like if you check behind here, someone's going to take a non-paired hand thinking that you have ace king and bluff off their entire stack. Sometimes you run into those guys, but it's not all that common. Do you see what I mean? Like he opened for a raise, you 3-bet, he called. That there's a range there. If you bet small enough here on the flop, he's going to call with any pair, and I still think he's going to peel you with some ace high holdings. You get the value now, as opposed to if you check behind and now the turn comes off like a small card, and then he just check folds now where you might have gotten the value on the flop. And if you bet small enough and his entire range continues, and then somehow he makes top pair on the turn, he's still in there. Because some people might make the case, well, if I check it back and then he hits top pair, he's still got to be in there with top pair, though. I feel like if you bet small enough on the flop. That's my take. I don't think it's criminal necessarily to check behind, but that's usually my approach in these particular spots.
Yeah, I think that was very valid. I just felt like I had so much of it covered. I didn't. He could, what I had him on at the time, could have called probably a small bet, like you said. And so, yeah, I think about 40 would have been probably right.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So the pot remains 125.
The turn is the 9 of spades.
The 9 of spades. All right. So now we're getting, we got some stuff coming in, like in form of, some straight, like one card to a straight type of, Jack 7, deuce 9. If a 10 were to come, right, we would have, a one liner. If an 8 were to come, we would have a one liner. No flush draws though out there, right?
Nope, no flush draws. And the guy's just sort of a quiet guy. Background on the villain. Doesn't say much. Plays pretty standard. All the showdowns I had seen from him before seemed like he was keeping it pretty tight. Wasn't getting out of line. So me being the bluff heavy guy, I definitely should have went for the flop. So I tried to make up for it on the turn by going bigger. And he checked, and then I went to 100.
So MP checks, and now Hero bets 100. Here's another thing too. Like, it's always kind of a little bit strange to me, and I'll actually overfold in a spot like this. So let's say that like I'm your opponent and I'm an MP, right? And I'm trying to think of like a weak hand here. Let's say that I had, say, pocket sixes or even like ace queen offsuit, and I defended to your 3-bet, okay? Now on the flop, like I said, if you kind of bet small, I probably would have continued. But now that you checked behind on the turn, and now you're betting gigantic, check behind on the flop, and now you're betting gigantic on the turn. This is so rarely like a bluff type of line that I almost overfold here in spots where you actually would have gotten value from me on the flop, if you follow what I'm saying. Now, the other thing about this is there's no backdoor flush draw, so it's not like you're just suddenly like betting something on the come. There really isn't anything on the come. Because how often do you see somebody in your spot 3-bet like ace 5? I'm trying to think of like some sort of bluff here. Or even like ace king, ace queen, and take this line as a bluff, meaning check back flop and then all of a sudden fire huge on somewhat of a wet card. I think a lot of the ace high holdings that you check back are just sort of just trying to get to showdown. So it always perks my interest if I'm in your opponent's spot when I see like a pre-flop 3-better check back a super sort of dry board when they're expected to bet, and then all of a sudden like come out and bet gigantic on the turn. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Just keep that like in your back pocket if you follow what I'm saying. Yeah. So you bet 100, okay.
And he just calls.
Okay. So villain MP calls. It's interesting to note here. So now the pot is 325. What do you think his range is here for check calling the turn?
Deuces through tens.
Well, you think he's check calling with bottom set? Or you mean like the pairs, like 3s through 10s that aren't sets?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
And perhaps he does do that with sets as well.
Well, what about Jack X?
There's only one left out there, Jack 10. That would make sense.
Or any suited Jack. You're right. I mean, you obviously block most of the Jack X. The thing that I would say is that not only do you block all the Jack X, but normally in a 3-bet pot, let's say he had like ace Jack, whatever, king Jack, queen Jack, Jack 10, whatever, and this board went check check. A lot of times you're going to see a guy bet the turn on a card that's not an overcard to a Jack. So not only are you blocking most of them, the line itself is not consistent with Jack X. So I think you kind of throw out the case Jack X, and now what are you left with here on Jack 7, deuce 9? Could be pocket 10s. Sometimes pocket 10s actually bets there on turn. Could be a hand like 8s, something like that. I would Now what about some sort of straight draws like queen 10, something like that? I would tend to think that those hands would want to come out and bet. Like if I defend to a 3-bet with like, say, queen 10, okay? How about king queen, which turns a gut shot? If it goes check check, I might be doing a lot of betting here on the turn with those holdings to try to eventually try to get you off of ace king ace queen. Like if I have king queen here or queen 10, something like that. So it's kind of interesting. I mean, could it be like a 9-10 type of holding? I mean, obviously, I think you're way ahead. I mean, you're only losing to one hand here now, right? But it's interesting. All right, so 325 on jack of clubs, 7 of diamonds, deuce of hearts, 9 of spades. Okay.
He just calls, and the river is the queen of spades.
Okay, so the queen of spades comes in. Jack 7 deuce 9 queen, which puts out the king 10 straight. Now, there was obviously the 10-8 straight, but this now puts out the king 10 straight.
And then he leads. He leads for 200.
Interesting. So the MP now leads for 200. So this is where I would look at stack sizes. Remember, you guys, so you started with 700. It looks like after you bet the turn, it went check on flop, so 160. The pot's like 5. So he's got 550 left in his stack moving to the river. Now he bets 200. So he's got 350 behind, right? Behind the 200.
Mm-hmm.
So again, as I work through this hand, the only thing that you're really losing to here is king 10. And I just think that you're unblocking. It's just like one of the cards that comes out when he jumps out. And I'm talking about even deeper. I mean, I think that this one, you're even shallow here where it's almost a no-brainer, I think, shove here. Just with 350 behind, we get to this concept of reverse pot odds that I like to talk about. So MP leads for 200. If you jam, the pot will be like 1,075 and it'll be like 350 for him to call. So he's going to be getting like over 3-1. Reverse pot odds, again, a term that I made up, similar to some of these other terms I made up on the Reddit video. It just means that like you can sometimes jam or bet thinner when your opponent doesn't have that much behind because he's going to call wider because he's going to be getting such great pot odds. But
is he calling that on the turn? Is he calling that 100 with king 10?
I mean, I've gone through. I would have thought that he would have either bet himself or very well no. King 10 is double gutted though. Do you see that though? It's interesting because king 10. So I talked about king queen leading turn and queen 10. King 10 is a double gut shot though, right? To an 8 and to a queen. Some people might miss that. So it's not a pure gutter. It's a double gut shot. Again, I would think you'd want to be coming out and betting from your opponent's perspective in a 3-bet pot after you check back jack 7 deuce, because I don't want you to get to showdown with ace king. I lose to ace king, right? I've got king 10. I lose to ace king, but it's a double gutter. So it is a little bit strange. I think with him only having 350 behind, maybe he's got like there is there a queen jack suited combo available? You've got the heart, the diamond, and the club out there. There actually isn't a queen jack suited combo available because the queen of spades is out there. So there's no queen jack suited combo available for him to like run into like top 2. Could he have like a hand like queen 9 suited, something like that? I mean, these guys, I don't know how wide these guys are, but put it this way. I don't think he's ever I don't think he's bluffing by just check calling turn. And I think that this bet usually represents 2-pair plus, so I don't think there's ever going to be a fold. Like, it would be shocking if you jammed and he folded for 350 more, I feel like, given this line. So then the question is, well, do you just have the best hand here? More, if he's always calling, if there's no bluffing frequency and he's always calling your bet because he's value betting, do you have the best hand here more than 50% of the time?
I went through all the possibilities in which I thought he had, and I didn't have him with queens. Is just not what I had him going with.
Right.
And I didn't have him with king 10 or 10-8. And those are the only hands that beat me. So I jammed.
Okay. So I think I agree with you. Hero jams for 550. And
The reveal is he quickly called with 10-8.
10-8. Wow. So he had the nuts on the turn.
Had the nuts on the turn, slow played it.
I mean, I guess we might have washed over that. I mean, obviously you lose to 10-8 too. But we were concentrating more on king 10. Like, does somebody do this with 10-8? And then, I mean, obviously, if the river was like a 3 and he bet the end, you're jamming, right?
Oh yeah.
I don't mind your play. I don't mind your play here.
All right.
I really don't mind your play. I wouldn't get too worked up about it. So hero call, villain calls with 10-8. Yeah. I mean, as long as you work through it. I mean, obviously you're not going to do that with like aces or something, right?
No, definitely not. I would have just called the 200.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for the call. I appreciate it.